The Journey by Brandon Bass is a book that teaches you a self-healing technique that you can follow, and today I'm going to share with you how to do it, and I will also do a review of the book. Welcome to a new episode of Inner Wisdom Life Guidance. Today we're going to be talking about The Journey by Brandon Bass. First, disclaimer, this is not medical advice, this is not mental health advice. If you have any issue, please talk to your respective professional. What we're going to share is just a summary of the book, how you can use the self-technique to help you. This is a complement to any other practice that you might be following right now. As I like to start when I talk about the book, first I explain why I recommend the book. This year we started reading Many Lives, Many Masters. And in that book, we learn about life, what's the purpose of life, why we're here, and so on. Then we read the Four Agreements. And in the Four Agreements, we learn how to live life. What are some key techniques, practices that you can adopt that are going to help you better cope with life. And now The Journey is a book that teaches you how to heal. So it's as part of your life, you have experienced any emotional or physical issues, The Journey is a great tool to help you heal. That's why I recommend this book. I read it in 2009 and it's one of the best books I have read about self-healing. A rating for the book, I will give it 4 stars. And usually I give 5 stars to all the books I recommend, but I'll explain why 4 stars. First, I think the technique is excellent. It's easy to use if you simplify it, which I'm going to explain a little bit about it. I think it's very straightforward. I think it's effective. I use it. I'll also explain later how I use it. And I also like that it's a great story in some way. With that said, I feel this time that I read the book, I think it's probably the 3rd time I read it. This time that I read the book, I feel that perhaps it could be a little bit like marketing focused, because she has this workshop that she offers, and yeah, as you read the book, it looks like she's trying to advertise her workshop, and there's nothing wrong with that, but maybe the book feels a little bit marketing focused on that way, on that aspect. The other thing that happens with this book, if it depends on what you like to read and how you're going to take it, but there's specific things that she shares that they might feel too dramatic, perhaps. There's all these things that she has to face, and maybe it's a little bit dramatic. And the other thing that could happen, I have recommended this book to many people, and I have a friend who read it and she felt that the author was a little bit perhaps arrogant. I don't feel that way, but I also think that you might take it in the wrong way if you have certain insecurities as you read the book, because yeah, Brandon Bass went through a lot of things and she was able to, cope with them and get over them. And yeah, it's remarkable. But if you feel that you have been struggling with things and then you compare yourself with her, then perhaps you're going to feel a little bit weird about it. But anyways, I don't think it's a big deal. It's a book that I still recommend everyone should read. One more thing about my rating of 4 stars. Her story is a little bit, I think at the very beginning, when she explains what happened to her, she's a bit reckless. And I think that's a bit dangerous, because someone can take this book and, again, take it in the wrong way, and they don't go to the doctor, they don't address a health issue that they have. I feel that's just a little bit strange. She clarifies that towards the end of the book, but that's something else that perhaps I feel she could have done a little bit of more effort as she was telling her story, reminding people that that was her journey, that was her experience, and everyone should really decide what's best for them. So that's just one little detail there. Now, as I mentioned, I have used this book before, and actually in 2009, that's the first time I read it, and I was able to heal something that was happening with me, specifically emotionally. But I'll explain you at the end of the video what that was and if it worked or not. Well, it worked. I already tell you that I used it and read it, and obviously I wouldn't be recommending it if it didn't work, but I'll explain at the end of the video what that was about. Okay, now let's talk about a summary of the book. What happened to Brandon Bass? Basically, she was working as part of this holistic health type of, vibe. And she started having a belly that she was not able to explain what it was, because she was healthy, she was eating fine, and she didn't want to go to the doctor. And then eventually, when her belly looked like she was 5 months pregnant, she decides to go to the doctor, and they find a tumor the size of a basketball. Of course, after 5, I don't know for how long she was delaying this, but yeah, after several months of not doing anything, yeah, now you have this huge tumor. And the doctor explains to her that this is extremely urgent. She needs to get surgery. And she doesn't want to. She wants to try and see if she can holistically heal the tumor. And this is where I feel that the reckless part comes. She, of course, can decide to do whatever she wants, but when you have such a big tumor and you didn't do anything for several months, and the doctor is telling you you're going to die if you don't do something, and she decides to try and heal it by herself, I feel that's a bit reckless. In the end, it worked out, which is what I'm going to explain how she did it, but I just find that to be a little bit reckless. Waiting too long, and then when they tell you that you have something that's extremely urgent, you're like, no, wait a second, I'm going to try something holistic to heal. I mean, of course you should have a limit, which is what she did. She had a window, I can't remember of how many days, to stop some internal bleeding that she was already having, and also to try and reduce the size of the tumor. Well, off she goes, she starts doing all these things, and something that I find fascinating in her story is how she is guided. There's all these things that she starts doing and experimenting, and there is this synchronicity in her life to meet the right people that give her the right support and the right tools to be able to heal herself. So she does a journey with a friend. That was the first, I guess, journey experience that she had, where she's able to dive into the tumor and try to understand what's going on. Why do I have you? Why do I have a tumor? And then she has these memories of events that she experienced, and she links those events with emotions that were stored in the tumor. And when she's able to release those emotions and forgive people related to that experience, the tumor starts to shrink. She goes back to the doctor. The doctor says, okay, yeah, you're doing something, I don't know what, it's working, but now instead of a basketball, it's the size of, I don't know, like a softball, let's say, or a baseball. And a grapefruit, I think, is actually the example that they use. And still she's like, well, I still want to try it on my own. And then there's this clash between the doctor and her, where the doctor keeps pushing for surgery. You need to do something. You can't just be doing this holistic stuff. You have to get real, let's say. At this point, she realizes that the doctor is never going to support her on this holistic journey, and she decides to walk away, continue doing her thing, just waiting, because she already did, let's say, a healing process through the journey. And then she goes to a different doctor and they do a full scan, and she has nothing. After 6 weeks, her tumor fully disappeared. She had nothing. That's amazing. And then after that, she decided to start doing this journey workshop to help other people to realize that you can heal yourself. Towards the second half and the end of the book, she shares the stories of many different people that have done the journey, that they came to her, what were their experiences like, what they were suffering, how they healed, and so on. So very good. I think there are very good examples that she has that can basically illustrate you that almost anything or everything can be healed as long as there is an emotional link to whatever it is that you have. And she mentions Deepak Chopra as someone who researched a lot on healing at cellular level, and that was actually her inspiration to try and see if she could somehow get deep on her body and her cells and try to figure out what was going on. And so that's a theory. You can be physically ill, or you can have a specific issue in your body because you did something. Let's say you broke your arm. There's nothing spiritual there. Maybe you just fell, you tripped, and you broke your arm. But something in this example as a tumor, what she explains is that's the result of memories and emotions that you stored in your cells, in your body somewhere, and you never dealt with them, and then they grew to become a tumor. So that's the emotional aspect of illness. It's something that happened to you that you didn't resolve, and you store it somewhere in your body, and then eventually it becomes a problem or an illness or an issue in your health. She also shares things that happened to her that trigger all these emotions towards the end of the book, as I was saying. I'm not going to go through them because I don't want to spoil them, especially if you're going to read the book, but then she explains about the power of doing a emotional journey, a journey focused on emotions, and how she was able to heal again. Yes, emotionally, there's nothing physical at this point. It's more trying to deal with what's happening right away. And there is a very good teaching on self-worth and self-love. And she does an excellent job explaining that in the book, what she believed was important to her, and then what she realized at the end that was actually important was the truth. What was the truth? Now let's talk about the journey. There's two types of journey, emotional journey and physical journey. Emotional journey is going to focus on an emotional issue that you have. Let's say you are constantly angry. You get angry very easily. And this is the process. And I'm going to do a simplification of what the actual journey is. If you want to fully read about it, like you fully want to learn it, like read the book and get the book and read it. And yeah, there's all these steps and all this process that you can follow. Even though I believe it's very effective, I think that it might be a little bit complicated. So I'm going to share with you the simplified version, and we're going, instead of calling it the journey, we're going to call it the trip. No, hold on. The trip sounds like we're going to smoke something or have some psychedelics. No, let's change the name. The quest. We're going to call it the quest. No, maybe that's too complicated. Let's call it the adventure. It's going to be the adventure instead of the journey. But it's going to be a short adventure. So anyways, here's the process. So you have this emotional issue. So you're always angry, okay? You get angry very easily. What you're going to do is you're going to sit down and you're going to try and get to a state of meditation. You're going to relax. You're going to be at a quiet place where there's no interruptions, and you're going to focus on the emotion that you have a problem with. So in this case, you're talking about anger. We're focusing on anger, and what you're going to do is think about something that makes you angry. And when you feel the emotion, you have to locate it in your body. Where do you feel the anger? And once you locate that, you are going to fully experience the anger. That's the purpose of the exercise, is to fully feel the emotion. Where is it in your body and what is it that you feel? This is an exercise of awareness. And you're going to be deep in the emotion, let's say for 30 seconds. And after that, you're going to try and think what's beneath anger. And when you ask yourself that, there's another emotion that's going to come up. And you're going to do the same thing. Where in your body do you feel it? You're going to experience it for 30 seconds or so, 45 seconds. And then you're going to ask for another emotion underneath it. And you're going to keep doing that until you get to a point that she calls the source. And this source is basically your true self, your inner wisdom, your higher self, the universe, God, however you want to call it, is this sensation of vastness. You are everything and everything is you. When you go through these emotions, the last thing that's going to be left is your pure self, this core, this source, as I said. And when you do that, you're going to have this experience of freedom. You're going to, in a certain way, have access to something that's going to help you heal. After you reach the source, and something that I forgot to mention, when you're doing the exercise of the different emotions, you're going to try and see if there is a link to an event that happened to you. So again, I'm just going to use anger as the example. You feel angry. When did you feel angry for the first time? Or what's the source of this anger that you have in your life? You're going to ask that to yourself. And you are going to see something that happened, and you're going to see people involved in that event. And it's important to keep track of this as you go through the different layers, and then you reach the source. After you reach the source, what you're going to do with this new tool that you have, you're going to do a campfire exercise where basically you're going to try and sit down with the people that were involved in the event that triggered this issue or the root cause of this issue. and then you're going to bring your younger version of yourself, and you're going to have this open conversation between all the parties. But it's a conversation that's going to happen at a higher level, where there's higher wisdom working. It's not just emotional discussion and you're blaming someone. It's compassion, wisdom, and understanding that's going to work here, so that you can properly understand at a higher level what happened, why it happened, what they did to you, whatever they did, and so on. And then it's going to end with forgiveness. You're going to forgive the people that did this to you, and it has to be an authentic forgiveness. It can't be something superficial. You truly have to forgive the person that did something to you, and you have to. The difference here is that when you do this exercise, you are going to be able to understand what was going on, why the person did the things that they did. And many times we take things personally, and I will highly recommend you to go and watch the video of the 4 agreements. You're taking something personally, and in reality, what the person is doing or did to you has nothing to do with you. It's with them. There's something in them, whatever happened to them. There's a root cause as well that is making them behave and do the things that they did to you. There's a reason. And when you understand that, when you accept that, you're at a position where it's easier for you to forgive and let go. Now let's talk about the physical journey. This is going to be a little bit easier than the emotional journey, and the recommendation is for you to experience the emotional journey before you do the physical journey. So in the physical journey, you already have experienced source. You know what source is. You touched it, let's say. You know how it feels. So for the physical journey, you're going to first get into this state of relaxation and state of meditation, and you're going to try and call back that feeling of being in touch with your source, with your core, with your inner wisdom. Once you do that, you're going to focus on the physical issue that you have, let's say a tumor, like in Brandon's example. You're going to go and dive into the tumor, and then you're going to try and see what events and emotions are linked to that tumor. And you're going to see potentially something that happened to you when you were younger, and you're going to see people that are related to that event that took place. Once you realize that, you're going to do the campfire exercise that we talk about. And you don't have to, it doesn't have to be that complicated, right? It can just be as basic as you visualizing yourself with these people and asking them, why did you do this to me? I felt in this way. It was very difficult. Now I have these problems. I want to understand why you did this to me. And then you're going to let them speak to you on what were the reasons behind the way they did it. And again, just like in the emotional journey, here these conversations are at a higher level, at a higher wisdom, where there's compassion, kindness, tolerance, understanding. So you listen to them, you listen what they have to say. They have to explain to you why that happened. You have to forgive them. That's the key in the end, is forgiveness. And once that's done, you come back from this deep state that you are, and that's the end of the physical journey. Both the emotional and the physical journey, they start with awareness and they end with forgiveness. You're aware of what you feel, what are the emotions that you have. You go through the whole process, and then you end the process by forgiving the people related to that problem, the challenge, that event that happened, the thing that it's making you feel the way that you feel. To wrap up the episode, how did I use the journey? I used the journey to fix my fear of public speaking. I'll explain all in a future video because it's going to be a very interesting story for me to share with you. For today, I just want to thank you for watching. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Remember that you can book a one-on-one appointment with me at iwlifeguidance.com, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.